building up a modern school museum for our times, thanks to Tijs van Ruiten from the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. I have enough time.
Yeah.
I thought myself to be brief this time. As museum professionals have to be. Okay, the past, the future, now, a school museum for the 21st century. That's the question for us, was the question for us in Rotterdam, because we no longer are the National Museum of Education in Rotterdam, because we have moved to another city. And how that came on, I will tell you. But we have one thing in common. Didn't we all go to school? That's the main theme that we as a museum in the Netherlands try to act on. The history of our museum goes back a long time ago. In 1877 there was the first National School Museum in Amsterdam. And that's also the reason, you heard it, Amsterdam, why we were so fond of moving our museum around. Because we first started in Amsterdam in 1877, we went to Zoetermeer near The Hague in the 1980s. After 5 years in Zoetermeer we went to Rotterdam, and there we have moved last year to another city. I'll tell you in a few moments which city we went to. So we were in Rotterdam for 25 years. We were a very popular and successful museum. About 40,000 visitors in Rotterdam and about 50,000 to 60,000 visitors to our exhibitions, which travel around the country. But the crisis broke out, and the city council wanted to use our building for a new university college. And this was our building. A huge building, 5,000 square meters, an old library, but it looks like an old school building. And although people outside of Rotterdam and in other countries always said we had the most beautiful school museum in Europe, we didn't think so. Because we have had it for 25 years, and we more or less are began to think, couldn't we do it another way? Because we had, like all these classrooms, historical classrooms, 7 historical classrooms, from the Middle Ages to the 1960s. But the City Council wanted our building. They also diminished our funding. And that was a big problem, because when you don't have enough money, you can't go on with your museum. So what did we do? Instead of getting in a state of despair, we decided to take the future in our own hands. And we decided to move again. We tried to move in Rotterdam. We started a lobby. We started a lobby in Parliament. We started a lobby in Rotterdam. We came to a dialogue with the City Council of Rotterdam to look if there would be another venue, another building. And they had other buildings for the museum. But we also took another turn. We also turned to other cities in the Netherlands with a clear question for a new location and a building for both our museum and our collections. And we have a large collection, 350,000 objects. So it's one of the largest school museums that there is. So we talked to a lot of cities in the whole Netherlands. And we came to one city which is only 20 minutes drive, 15 minutes drive, 40 minutes on a bike. I do it every day. From Rotterdam, it's the city of Dordrecht. And Dordrecht is a beautiful old city. It's a historic city, like Ljubljana. It's the oldest city in Holland. But people don't know it. Even the Dutch don't know it. It's a hidden gem. And that's why the city council of Dordrecht tries to use cultural heritage as a means to attract tourism. So they invested 100 million euros in 5 years in cultural institutions and in museums. I knew this, so that's one of the reasons I went to talk to Dordrecht. And Dordrecht was very taken in by the idea of getting a national school museum in their city. So, despite staying in Rotterdam and getting another building of the city council, we choose to go to another city, and we choose Dordrecht. And that gave us an opportunity to reinvent our own museum, to leave behind the old classrooms. And if you look at Dordrecht, this is a little map of Dordrecht. It's a city with 3 rivers, like Passau, in Germany. And you see that the museum, it's over here, where the little head is, that's our logo. You see it's very near to the most busy yeah, the most busy road in Holland, and it's only 200 meters from the central station of Dordrecht. So it's on the way to the historic inner city. And when you think about reinventing your own museum, you have to do a lot of research, and you have to talk to people, you have to talk to your own colleagues, and that we did. So we made mood boards. What do we think is important for our museum? What does the public think is important for our museum? What do our stakeholders think is important for our museum? Our stakeholders are the Ministry of Education. Our stakeholders are the public, the general public. Our stakeholder are the educational factories, the schools. All those stakeholders we asked, what do you think should be a national school museum? So these mood boards, they tell you everything about what the public wants. They want good coffee in the museum. They want a good, they want to see collections, they want to learn something, but they also want a good shop, they want a good coffee. So we took a new approach, and reinventing the museum meant that there was no future for our historical classrooms. So we are not going to use them anymore. I think, and that's the point in the Netherlands, there is no future for historical classrooms in a national school museum. It may seem harsh when I say this, but it's really true, because in the last 30 years, we as a National School Museum have built, I think, about 20 to 30 historical classrooms all over the Netherlands. There are dozens of museums in the Netherlands with historical classrooms. And I think we as a national museum have to stand out. We have to be different. And to be different, that means we don't show these historical classrooms anymore. And we have beautiful historical classrooms. They aren't demolished. They all went to other museums. So if you want to see our historical classrooms, you're welcome in the Netherlands, and you have to travel around to see them again. What's very important is that our collections are still the basis for our museums. But to be different, that means you have to be distinctive. You have to stand out from all the other museums. That's why we choose not to have a historical classroom. And you have to be political and social aware of your surroundings. I think most of our colleagues are not political and social aware of their surroundings. We're too much busy with our daily job doing, collecting, researching, and not looking outside what is happening in the world around us. Because you have to know your stakeholders. And having a museum is all about creating support. Support for your museum. That's the important thing. So we now work like a project organization. We do projects. It can be an exhibition. It can be a research development. It can be the writing of a biography, a book. It can be everything. And we create partnerships. Partnerships with schools, with people, with friends of the museum, with local authorities, with anything you can imagine. Partnerships are the thing you have to have if you want to have a good museum. In the new exhibitions, the focus will be on themes. It will not be a chronological exhibition. We try to offer a complete experience. A museum shop, a museum cafe. Our museum should be a lively venue, a venue for meetings, reunions, marriage, debate about, it could be everything. People would want to come back to your museum. You have to stand out, you have to be different. And that means your building has to be different. In Rotterdam, we were offered old school buildings. We don't want a school building. We don't want our museum to be in an old school. Because people expect that of you. And this is the unexpected. It's an old office building. And it's a very peculiar building. It's from the 1930s. It's from a very famous Dutch architect, Tijs van Ruiten. And what's so important about this building is, I have a small, I hope it works, even the music works. This is a video graphic of how the building is going to be in a year's time. It's an old office building for an insurance company. It's about 2,500 square meters. So it's half of the size of our old building, but our collections are not here. Our collections go to a city depot for archives. So it's only a building for our public. And we still have collections. We still have classrooms of photographs. We have many of them, thousands. So we can recreate them whenever we want. It might be that we recreate them in a digital way or for a temporary exhibition. But what's new about all the things we do is that we want to inspire people. We try to let the activities and the exhibitions of the museum connect to the interest of the people and a broader interest and a broader public. Because the people who visited the museum in Rotterdam were always the same people. And there are 16 million people in the Netherlands. So there are a lot more people to be had by the museum. And we translate social and educational issues by exhibitions. We use social media, films, lectures. And, I told you again, we have partnerships. We work together on a regional, national and international scale. Yesterday, 2 days ago, we were in Würzburg in Germany to start another international project. And you have to earn money, because we have to be less dependent of government funding. We had a lot of money about 5 years ago. We are funded by the government, funded by the city council, and we only earn 10% of what we, and that's for Dutch museums, that was a lot. But nowadays the times have changed. You have to earn your own money. So in the new museum, when we open in 2014, we will have to earn 50%. And I think that's possible. And what we're going to do in these themes and in the museum is making it personal for the visitor. Because that's what people like nowadays. You make it personal. And personal means, this is me. As a schoolboy. And a few years later. And we incorporate school culture, youth culture. This is me in a school band, when I had hair. And we're going to talk about what's not nice about education. Because there are a lot of people who went to school and who have very bad memories about school. That's also an aspect we're going to make. So we tell stories, personal stories, and we ask people to bring those stories to the museum. We try to amaze people with that. And we make it personal, giving people a historical sensation. Not by sitting in an old historical classroom, but by, for instance, giving them their old school diary. That should be enough for people. And we focus on the period after the Second World War. Why is that? Because we live now. And people want to have an experience about their own school period. And that means when someone who's 18 years old now visits our museum, that means when he sees his school diary, he or she sees his school diary from 6 years before that, that's a third of his or her life. That's history. So we try to, okay, 1 minute. And work in themes and choose attractive themes. Every group, every target group. So that could be a theme with a working title about in the classroom, or about legislation and school oversight. Doesn't sound sexy, but there are lots of people who like it. School diaries, educational innovation, and also an international perspective. And we use nostalgia and mix that with current issues. That's very important. In much of our themes, we will start in the present day and work back. So we mix the old and the new. And we hope in Dordrecht, it's more or less central in the Netherlands, to again get some 50,000 visitors each year, and also 50 to 60,000 visitors in our other traveling exhibitions. Because we work through all of the country. See here a map of Holland with all our activities we have throughout the country. And this is the building, the old office building. It's called the Holland. This is what it looked like when it was built in 1939, an old office building. And what's so beautiful about it for our museum is that in the 1980s it was demolished to become a supermarket. So only the outside is being restored. The inside of the building is an open space. And that's perfect for a museum. We can do anything we like in there. This is what it should look like when the garden is finished. This is one of the floors. We have 3 floors in the museum. You see the lobby, the shop, here's the cafe. We have a very large museum garden of 3,000 square meters. We have educational spaces, we can rent out spaces. And this is what it's going to look like, hopefully, in about 12 months. viewed from the inside. It's an open space where our exhibits will come. And you see some of the rooms we can use in all kinds of different manners. For debates, for lectures, for small exhibitions. And not only exhibitions by our museum, but also exhibitions by schools or other partners. And it has to be modern. Modern with a twist. So we're going to use old school material to give it a modern, spicy look. And we're getting a feature, and that's the same lift as in the Louvre in Paris. So we have some important issues which I want to give to you, and that is to have a clear view on your target groups. And your target groups is not only the public, it's not only researchers, it's not only schools, it's not only the general public, it's everyone. And for every target group, you have to work hard to give them what they want from you. You have to ask what they see in your museum. So you have to stay in contact with your stakeholders. I, as a director, are constantly, it's the only thing I do. I don't do research anymore. You can ask my colleague Jacques, he's the researcher nowadays. I'm only in contact with our stakeholders, our public, with the ministry, with the city council, with schools, with institutions. And you must people know that you exist as a museum. That's very important. You have to communicate. You have to communicate there is a National School Museum, and that's in Dordrecht. And don't be afraid to fail, because we all make mistakes. We do too. But we're getting there. And this is the last picture I'm going to show you of the new museum that's going to open in 2014 in Dordrecht, in the Netherlands. Thank you.
Thank you, Tijs, for this short view on the present and the future of the Schulmuseum, probably.